Hello, and thanks for joining us on this evening's edition of Majority Caucus. We are live on multi-TV Joy News channels, to be precise. My name is Ali Dawood. I will be your host for tonight's discussion. I'm sure you do know, remember, that yesterday around this time, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the President of the Republic of Ghana and the presidential candidate of the NDC, presented a highlight of the manifesto to be launched on weekend. And we are poised to bring you details of that and other issues related to campaign and the campaign messages. I have a very, very powerful guest in the studio tonight, a very powerful guest. I will tell you all about this wonderful guest when we come back from this break. But before then, you should notice that today the studio is going to be hot. You are going to be educated. So wherever you are, if you know a friend, call a friend to tell a friend that it's time to tune in to Joy News channel to watch Majority Caucus. Today's edition is exceptional, and so I would urge you to stay glued to your TV sets. We will be right back after this break. And then you're welcome back to the show if you're just joining in. This is Majority Caucus, and we are live coming on your multi-TV Joy News channel, to be precise. Before the guest is introduced, I want you to take a quick watch at the excerpts of what happened last night.
This is what the agenda for transformation suggests. This transformation entails a move away from over-reliance on commodity exports towards diversification and value addition. All of these have begun already, and they will be sustained and accelerated over the next 4 years. An integral part of the NDC's agenda for transformation is our unwavering belief that Ghana's greatest wealth is its people. Our country will continue to rise as we focus a large part of our developmental efforts in harnessing the skills, potentials, and ingenuity of our people. There's tremendous potential in the Ghanaian to create, innovate, and transform our nation. As leader of the NDC and government, our policies, programs, and projects have been directed at putting people first, building a strong economy for jobs, expanding infrastructure for accelerated development, and advancing transparent and accountable governance. We've been vindicated as we have seen huge payoffs in terms of access to education, access to healthcare, and other social services. This has led to improved educational outcomes and favorable health indices for our people. We've undertaken in some instances completed major institutional reforms and built strong and viable institutions. We've invested in building robust infrastructure to stimulate economic growth. This has created jobs, and we intend to create even more jobs. Addressing unemployment and creating job opportunities will be at the core of my renewed mandate. With the renewed mandate I'm seeking, we will continue policies and programs and introduce new initiatives that are consistent with our key social democratic principles of equity in development. We still have more roads to construct. We have more houses to build. We have more food to produce. We have additional educational and health facilities to provide, and we have more jobs to create. Indeed, these are also key demands of the Global Compact encapsulated in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, which we have agreed to uphold. With the collaboration of the Bank of Ghana, we shall institute mechanisms that will significantly lower the cost of credit and position the private sector to play its role in the transformation agenda. Already and systematically, we are changing lives and we're transforming Ghana. Indeed, I feel very inspired by the success we have achieved in the last 4 years. We can be proud of that record. We will sustain the transformation and we will make even more progress. I have abiding faith in the people of Ghana and in the future of our country. And more importantly, I remain committed to the cause of making our nation greater and stronger. God bless our homeland, Ghana. So that is the foreword. The manifesto is structured in 4 thematic areas. The first is putting people first, and that covers social services and human resources. And so you have education, healthcare, you have youth, you have social protection, and all those under putting people first. Then the second is a strong and resilient economy for job creation. And this involves strategies for macroeconomic stability and growing the economy and providing jobs. The third is expanding our social and economic infrastructure. And so under this, you have the energy sector, you have transportation, you have water resources, you have housing, and all the other infrastructural ministries. And then the final is transparent and accountable governance. This has the security services, it has foreign affairs, it has the judiciary, it has parliament, and it has all the other issues to do with governance.
And thanks for staying with us. You are still live on Majority Caucus on your multi-TV. My name is Ali Dawood. I did promise in my introductory remark that we have a very powerful guest in the studio tonight. This person has been a lawyer for over 15 years in good standing. I'm sure some of you may not know that. So if it is about being qualified to be a judge, she would have been a Supreme Court judge by now, or even a Chief Justice. And she happens to be the Deputy Minister for Transport, also doubles up as the official campaign spokesperson for the National Democratic Congress. We have Honorable Joyce Bauer in the studio. Madam, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Ali.
It's always a pleasure.
Likewise.
This is your first time on the show?
Certainly.
Indeed. Madam, we have so much to talk about. It is my hope that the time would allow us, so we delve into details as to what we need to share with our viewers. But let's start from what happened yesterday. In my opinion, I think it was a fantastic program. The delivery was apt. I would say it's almost perfect. I mean, when I say it's perfect, people would want to. I mean, you were the MC, and so I should give you some mark. So we won't give 100% to the president. You ought to take at least a percentage.
Oh, certainly.
You know,
I think
it was excellent. If you ask me, the delivery was on point.
Yeah.
But what went into this idea of manifesto highlight? Some would argue that on Saturday you are going to launch the manifesto. Why do you give us highlight when you be doing something more into details on the weekend?
Well, Ali, thank you very much. A very good evening to all your viewers, and thank you for having me. You do know that the National Democratic Congress likes to do things differently.
Indeed.
We like to call ourselves pace setters. I do think that when we launched the Green Book, it was pretty much the same. Okay. People were wondering why we were going on and on about this all-important document of ours. But you remember also that even in times past, people actually launched books that they are actually even running away from and too ashamed even to propagate. Okay. But President Mahama, in his usual candid, passionate, and respectful way, presented highlights at the time of the Green Book. In pretty much similar vein, we decided that considering the volume of the actual 2016 manifesto, that we will be presenting an abridged version, a summary, which we wanted to describe as the highlights. Indeed, yesterday was a fantastic evening. The whole posturing of President Mahama, the introduction by Vice President Emisa Arthur was simply wonderful. I do think that several of our national executives, and of course, the party chairman himself was present. We had members of the national campaign team and other executives of the National Democratic Congress. Members of the diplomatic corps were represented as well, and key opinion leaders, besides all the other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course our friends from the media who attended to us. It was an amazing evening. It was almost like an evening where a president actually engages with the people of this country. So indeed, whereas President Mahama was speaking directly to the good people of Ghana, he was also speaking to members of his party. And I do think that he made us all very, very proud.
Indeed. Madam, There was no doubt, like I indicated, that this program was absolutely fantastic. If you ask me, I checked and monitored the feedback on social media, and it was fantastic. But of course, you will always have the MPP have a go at it, regardless. That should not be our preoccupation. But the point is that for what the president did last night, I wonder if there is any more left to be done on the weekend, because it was a summary. You understood completely what the NDC Manifesto would be. I wonder if there's anything more to be said.
Well, you do know that some people would only ever actually read the abridged version or look at the slides of the summary. But then, of course, for the wider good, it is also important to officially outdoor and launch this manifesto document. Remember also that we are a party that actually cut across all the regions in this country. So this time around, the strategy is that we'll be going to the Brong-Ahafo region, to Sunyani specifically on Saturday, the 17th, to officially launch the full manifesto document for the 2016 campaign.
Indeed.
And so we are hoping that after that, people can use it as a reference book. Don't forget that the National Democratic Congress has an amazing research team. And indeed, you've heard recent debates and comments in terms of what goes into the party's manifesto. It actually encompasses our goals. It discusses our achievements. It actually also explains the vision of the president and candidate of a party at any given time. And indeed, the 2012 manifesto has been adjudged one of the most realistic. President Mahama himself admits that in some cases, maybe we missed the target, but largely we have delivered on majority, if not on all, our promises for the good people of Ghana. And indeed, as he makes a case for his second and final term in office, I do think that our manifesto would play a key role in that decision for those who are yet to be convinced. Don't forget that we actually started by outlining some of our achievements in all these great areas of development. And then subsequently, we actually indicated where we will be enhancing, where we'll be improving, and in fact, other new critical things that we believe that the good people of Ghana would buy into. Remember also that in 2012, we had an extremely realistic manifesto. Yes. The one thing that actually stood out was the fact that we were unable at the time to implement the one-term premium for the national health insurance. Indeed, it is one thing that continues to engage us. Much as the national health insurance has grown by leaps and bounds, with relatively almost 70% of people accessing national health insurance, we have come to a conclusion that it will be important to commit some of the funds from the petroleum legacy account to the national health insurance to ensure its sustainability. I mean, it's interesting that this week I've been following events in other countries. In fact, the United Kingdom, which actually was first to propound this theory of a national health insurance, has also come to the conclusion that it is bursting at its seams, that funding is now a challenge. So the new debate now is how to find ways to continue to support this all-important socially critical intervention. And indeed, yesterday, I'm sure you heard when President Mahama presented the manifesto highlights, he actually took it from the perspective of the 4 key thematic areas. And the National Democratic Congress has always had these themes as part of its manifesto, largely for ease of reference, and of course for people who are looking for specific issues, you know exactly where to find them. So I think largely that we have fully satisfied the good people of Ghana. We look forward to a second and final term for President Mahama, and of course we look forward to delivering on all the promises contained in our manifesto.
There is absolutely on point. There's some similarities that I observe. In 2012, you had similar thematic areas, and I think that it worked, and that is why it's still being maintained and built upon. But the thematic areas, I want us to narrow down. Let's look at social infrastructure, for instance. You've been on the campaign tour. How effective do you, or have you assessed the impact to the ordinary Ghanaian? And there is a saying that of what use is road, decorated with gold to a hungry man. In your opinion, how effective are some of these developmental projects that the president is doing to the ordinary people?
You know, Ali, I always like to look at this particular issue from a very personal perspective. Okay. Being a young child growing up in Tamale, and I recall the years I spent in Cape Coast when we had to travel all the way from Tamale to the central region. I remember what the roads were like at the time, even for me as a young child or a young student. Okay. So I imagine what it is for that individual who has farm produce that need to get to the market, that individual who needs to travel from one place to the other. I would also want to go back to the fact that President Mahama in particular has been an assemblyman. He's been a rural MP for 3 terms. He actually became vice president of this country and is presently president of the country. If there's any individual who knows this country, it is this gentleman called President Mahama. So when he talks about roads and the impact to the ordinary Ghanaian, I would tell you that roads are indeed critical to our development. What is a beautiful country like ours if people cannot traverse from one place to the other? Indeed. What is the point if you have all the efforts you make? Look at the tourist attractions we have, and there are no more trouble roads for you to access them. I recall President Mahama himself telling a story about how in times past, of course, he's generations ahead of us, how it used to be difficult even to find transportation to come to Legon when he was a student in the University of Ghana. So to these regular, ordinary Ghanaians, access to motorable roads is a hugely impactful thing, both to their social lives, to their economic lives, and of course to their independence even as a people. Don't forget that largely Ghana is one of those countries where we have large expanses of land. If you take the northern region, for example, you find that we occupy almost 1/3 of Ghana's land mass. Traveling from one place to another is no joke. So if you have a good motorable road, it will actually be enhancing your livelihood. It will be improving upon your economy. And above all, it gives you a better opportunity in life than if you were just in a rural area that had no motorable road. So I do look at this. I remember when we were in the Western region on the recent campaign tour, there were several arguments for and against. And of course, you find your opponents always, you know, I think we have to start to work towards elevating our discourse. Let's elevate to the debate to the point of issues. Indeed. When we focus on issues like President Mahama has advised us all to do, you find that people are more accepting. People are able to appreciate better what you're saying. For example, some have argued, why would Tamale need an airport?
I've heard it.
Osajifo President Nkrumah actually developed an airport in Tamale many years before I was born. There must have been a good reason.
Absolutely.
So if almost 60 years after somebody decides to rehabilitate and upgrade that airport, there must be a good reason. Tamale is now billed as the fastest growing populace we have in this country. There's businesses there, there's life there, there's so many economic opportunities there. All these banks you see here are actually operating in that region as well. So what better way to open it for even further economic development other than to create a modally complementary system of transportation? I remember citing the World Bank report, which actually posited that roads really creating modally complementary system of transportation would be the next best thing to happen to a country like Ghana. In fact, that is what will propel us to the fully middle income status that we all envisage. So roads will continue to occupy us for many, many years to come. And they will continue to form a very critical component of our economic development as well. And not to forget the socially beneficial things that it does. Look at the hospitals that we built around. Access to them would require good roads. Look at the environments and the agricultural products and all of that. You do need access to better markets or readily available markets or quicker access or more efficient systems of transportation.
Indeed. Madam, talking about transportation, I want us to link it with the argument as to whether or not road will be essential to our livelihood. You are at the Transport Ministry. I have seen some expansion of roads in Accra, and the information I have is that there's going to be more or less like a trial period for Ayalulu bus. Yes. I need to know how practical that would be, considering the fact that we have these structural drivers. It's difficult to maintain them in shape. And so this road, the extra road or special road that we are creating for the Ayalulu, how practical would that be? I want to be sure.
You know, I have seen this actually working beautifully in Angola. where there's space enough for everybody. What I would say is that for Ghana in particular, what is one of our key challenges is that we want to provide public transportation that is acceptable for you and I to use. The trotros and taxis are available for every other person, but we want to provide wider-bodied buses. They are disability-friendly as well. The idea is so that we can reduce congestion on our roads. I recall many years ago when the Accra and Sawam railway wagons were actually commissioned for use. Most of my colleagues used to come to work on those trains. They used to park their vehicles at the train station in Sakomono and ride on the trains. This is the sort of Ghana we all envisage. Obviously, there will be less traffic on our roads because there will really be no need for everybody to want to drive their car into town. In fact, in developed jurisdictions now, we have a congestion charge.
Yes,
you drive into the
London,
city.
When you drive into London metropolitan areas, you pay.
And they make a lot of money.
Yeah, you pay. So you're compelled to park your car and take the train.
Yes. So why don't we provide similar interventions here? And it is the reason why I always come back to the point that one of President Mahama's key development objectives is that he wants to create a modally transformational system of transport. He mentioned yesterday that in his next term, the railways will receive a serious boost. Some work is ongoing, but he will want to take us back to where the railways used to be before the decline that we experience now. So that it means that we have other options. There will be train options, there will be road options, and of course, the aviation industry likewise. So his real vision as we speak now is to develop Ghana into a transportation hub. And I'm sure you've visited the ports, the seaports in particular. You've seen what is happening in Tema and what is happening in Takoradi. Don't forget all the fishing port in Takoradi, that is the Busumchi fishing harbor. All of these things are going to be revamped. What we are doing is investing in infrastructure so that we can create job opportunities, more investment, and of course, encourage the private sector to participate more actively in all of these fields of endeavor and development.
Indeed. Madam, now that you've mentioned the issues about the fields of development, I want us to focus really on the campaign issues properly. I have heard some candidates belonging to certain political parties make promises of maybe one factory, one district. As to the realistic nature of some of these promises, I don't know. But what I believe is that His Excellency the President last night demonstrated so much knowledge that you need, first of all, to understand the economic circumstances of those local areas before knowing what to do and whether they need a factory or they need... I mean, you have been on the campaign tour. How do people receive some of these messages? Are they just so vulnerable that you promise them one district, one factory, they go with it, or they have become more discerning?
Well, I do think that the electorate really have been very, very discerning. Don't forget, we've been practicing with this constitution now since 1992.
Indeed.
So we have a more or better sophistry when it comes to our electorate. And I'm sure that every Ghanaian knows when they hear just a mere half and a puff, something that probably will come to naught. And indeed, this is a situation we have where we've had our opponents promise the world. And in return, what did people get? In fact, I don't think that this tale about one everything for every constituency is actually a new thing. But you see, realistically, I know the northern region and most of Ghana very, very well. And in traveling with President Mahama, I have actually seen it even with a totally different lens. When you take these communities where we go promising all these things, I listen to countless opinion leaders. I listen to all the discussions. And don't forget, President Mahama has been one of those leaders who has been extremely engaging. He is engaged on the media, on radio, on television. He's been traveling with his accounting to the people tour. So he's actually been very interactive. Look at sometimes even in a week, he's crisscrossing all over the country. This is a man who knows his brief. So when you take places where you want to give them one dam per district or per constituency, in fact, in some specific areas, because of the low layout of the land even, there will be no streams anyway. So how do you find the water to be able to develop this dam? I know dams to be just mere drainage areas, and there's a certain geographic or natural propensity towards a dam or another. It is actually one of the key reasons why most of the arable lands there are being fed through irrigation projects largely. And these have been going on for many, many years.
I have seen some in both.
Absolutely. In most of our agricultural catchment areas, we have serious irrigation projects going on. The government has always continued to invest in these irrigation, and I'm sure recently you heard SADA even announce that they were developing one in the upper East region. We take all sorts of things into consideration. You look at the demographics, you look at the geographical layout, you look at the environment, you even look at the number of people. That all makes a difference. But above all that, it is a natural inclination which allows a district or constituency to either be able to construct a dugout. In fact, in some cases even, when you go even to mine for water through digging boreholes, you find that you don't have a yield. Or you might find a yield and the yield is not even good for consumption. So this is an administration that has worked very hard to bridge the gap where everybody now has access to at least some good drinking water. The small community water projects are a great intervention for communities that do not have all these streams and what have you. But at least these small water projects provide good, clean drinking water. Ghana is one of the countries that has actually eradicated guinea worm. It is because now we have access to potable water. So a lot is being done in all of these areas. And you know, I keep telling people, every administration makes some sort of investment in this country. Everybody comes to power based on one manifesto promise or the other. But I think we should come to a level where our promises are actually realistic, that they are born out of some serious thought, some serious research, that they are just not born out of mere, you know, trappings to power. But there is a good reason why good leaders would make promises. And each time I come back to the same thing, that yesterday, for example, when President Mahama spoke to the manifesto highlights, he touched on education, he touched on health, he touched on housing, he touched on water, he touched on the economy, he touched on agri particularly, he touched on roads. Largely, these are the areas that actually form the fulcrum of our development. These are the things people want to see. So when we talk about changing lives and transforming Ghana,
it's not about 1 million.
It is not. Absolutely not. Okay. It is a systemic thing that every Ghanaian must, in one way or the other, benefit from this phenomenal development that we see around us.
But Madam, let's look at the campaign strategy. I mean, not to discuss the strategy, but the thematic areas. Let's focus on education, for instance. It is obvious that the president has done enormously well in the sector of the education. Schools have been built, people are attending. But the idea of modeling the educational system to reflect job opportunities has become the question that people are begging to have answers to. And the president touched on that in the future he's going to have a specific deputy minister in charge of TVET and, you know, the Technical Institute. Perhaps you would want to elaborate on that for our viewers.
Well, you do know that for many, many years, in fact, since President Mahama assumed office as president of this country, he has actually focused largely on improvements to our educational system. He has not only looked at educational infrastructure in terms of the community senior day high schools being built, he has also looked at improving upon teacher-to-child ratio. He has looked at training for teachers as well. But largely, he believes that there is still some deficit in the sort of technical education, because you want your education to be more focused on entrepreneurship. You want students to know what sort of careers they're training for. And I believe that when he spoke to students at the University of Caucus, he used himself as an example, that he had actually studied history. He came out of university and realized that there were no jobs available to any historian except if you wanted to teach or undertake research. So he saw a course, advertising for people to come and do a master's in communication. Today, as he says, the rest is history. So you can start off as studying history and branch into some other area where you probably find your forte, where you are better at it. So you can even have a talent. And several people are doing it now, making good money and incomes, even employing others from just using your talent as a modus of employment. So President Mahama has said that he will want to focus on the construction of additional polytechnics. He wants to focus on improving upon technical education. He wants to set up technical entrepreneurial centers in all the 10 regions of Ghana. And in addition to these ones, there will be career and guidance counseling departments as well, so that at least everybody now knows there's several things that you can do. Let's remember also that this education system that we have, for example, when you have a first degree, it's just a launch pad really for any individual. There is still so many. Look, I know guys who went to university and studied land economy. Today they are pilots. In fact, my good friend is one of these examples who did something completely different for a first degree. Today he's one of the best pilots we have in Ghana. In fact, there were times when he was even flying for Africa World. Okay. He started out doing something totally different and ended up as a pilot. I have a lady friend of mine too who did the same. So there are so many other opportunities. Look, presently, what is it we are doing? We are trying to revamp our educational system, trying to find ways of developing entrepreneurial skills in individuals so that everybody is not thinking about the public sector employing you. You know, these days we find our opponents going on to criticize why we are not recruiting and employing into the public service. I recall in times as I was always in the public service, the complaints he had about the public service being bloated, even set up a whole ministry for reforming the public sector. If there was nothing wrong with it, why was there a need for them to set up a whole ministry to reform it?
Headed by Dr. Papakwesi.
Absolutely, now party leader for the PPP. So we have always known. So now President Mahama says, look, I'm going to do something about this public service. I'm going to do something to improve productivity, to improve performance. What is it he wants to do? I'm going to work towards replacements, rather. So when people leave, new people come in. When there are vacancies created by people going on retirement, people moving to other areas of endeavor, then we have room to employ people. But what has he done even to enhance all these things? He has set up the Youth Employment Agency. He has set up the Youth Fund, where, in fact, yesterday he announced a major intervention that it will now be increased from the 10,000 to 10 million Ghana cedis. This is all to facilitate, to enhance and develop people who have good proposals so we can develop more entrepreneurs. And we expect these entrepreneurs to take advantage of the tax incentives to recruit more people, to train more people.
There's one that got my attention most, if you like, is it the car, I don't know if they are the magazines,
particularly
the apprenticeship job.
Absolutely.
They are going to be resourced, to take on people to train
And in
them.
fact, when we were in the central region recently, we visited one of those places where they have a whole sawmill industry. And President Mahama even promised at the place to provide them with better equipment. Because once they have more modern equipment, productivity will be increased, the efficiency goes up. And of course, it means that more people will be going into that field. I have a friend of mine who left university with a first class and has a huge sawmill business in Kumasi. He will do nothing else because he's fulfilled in exploiting the talent that he has. These are the sort of examples that President Mahama wants to give. This is the legacy he wants to build. That at the time when he becomes president for the second and final term, he will be creating more entrepreneurs than we have. Because these entrepreneurs will contribute to the private sector. I mean, I recall he even mentioned the reasons why the Local Content Act was passed.
Yes.
It was to take care of this aspect, that expatriate companies investing in Ghana would be training our human
our people
resource to improve upon their capacity, build capacity, so that at least they can even take up all of these jobs. And it's working beautifully. You know, there are times when you need even specialized people in areas such as plumbing and electricals, and you can't even find them. No. But gradually, these sort of opportunities are being opened to people who have interest in the area, so that eventually we would have a society that actually caters to all of this. But this is all born out of what? Improved technical education.
Indeed. And that is why I was a bit concerned with the conversion of the technical, the polytechnics into technical universities. For the new polytechnics that the president promised, are they going to remain polytechnics, or we should see them also being converted in no time? Because there are existing polytechnics
that are now being upgraded.
So this will come to replace them. But what would be, in your opinion, what would be the difference in terms of the output? Those who enroll through a technical university, it is to get them the degree level, and those who go through the polytechnic.
You know that this was a debate for many, many years.
Indeed.
The source of certificates that people were receiving from polytechnics. A time came even when if you were a polytechnic graduate, you had a diploma, obviously.
Yes.
So after working for 2 years, you could enter the university and have a top-up degree.
Yes.
Then there was a time when polytechnic heads now had to have a PhD in the faculty likewise. So what it meant is that if you now have a better enhanced faculty headed by people who are qualified to head universities, then it means then that you must also take a second look at the sort of degrees or diplomas that are being awarded. Then also there was this impression that there was some discrimination too towards people who actually, for example, take a civil engineer from a polytechnic and take one from now Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. They were usually not at par, and employers actually viewed them differently.
Yes.
So there was a good reason why we had to work to bring all of these things together. So that at least what it meant is that the same pride with which a civil engineer would be walking out of one of the premier universities would be the same from this. But remember that in Germany, for example, there was a focus on technical education, and it drove their industrialization. And so most of the models that we'll be seeing are born out of this experience, which actually was taken up from Germany. Because what we realize now, look, times are changing.
Indeed.
We don't all want white-collar jobs.
No.
You know, I have a joke that I tell people all the time, that the only profession that teaches you to go and fish for yourself, fend for yourself, make money for yourself is the law.
Indeed.
Because you leave law school and nobody's asking you to. In fact, most people would not even take a job. Recently, I had an interesting discussion with someone who asked me, madam, you know, somebody's offering a job. You think I should go and take it?
No way.
So I asked him, I said, look, you lose your freedom.
Yes,
Secondly, absolutely. No matter what. As for what will feed you, you will find it. Let someone get a little situation soon. Let him be arrested for some small offense or the other. Even if you are just a day out of the law school, they need your services. So we need to get to that level where we have professional courses, we have degrees that teach you to come out. For example, you are an electrical engineer. The minute you come out, you are looking for opportunities to do things for yourself. These are the reasons why we need to also work towards improving upon our educational structure. We have a great one. Look, go around the world. Ghanaians are doing brilliantly everywhere. In fact, in some job places, people would recommend a Ghanaian anytime because our educational system is top-notch. Our professionals are top-notch.
I see a lot of our West African neighbors coming here, Nigeria,
all the time.
Burkina Faso.
All the time. Go to the Regional Maritime University. Go to all the academic institutions. We have several of them. I have several colleagues of mine who have their kids in school here in Ghana. There must be a good reason. This is testimony to the sort of education that we have. And I think it is instructive that at this time President Mahama is focusing attention on technical education. This is what will drive the industrialization that we all want to see. All the factories that are being revamped, the new ones that are being built. In fact, yesterday, someone gave me an interesting idea, and that all the fishing landing sites we are developing and the preservation projects that are going on, that Jamestown would also be a very beautiful model for some of these interventions. We could even set up small canning factories.
That was going to be
so if anybody is watching us,
the strategy for the coastal areas.
If somebody is watching us and is interested, canning will be a great business, because what would you be doing? You'll probably find more modern ways of smoking and preserving fish, and of course canning it for the market. There are great Ghanaians who are doing this already. Agribusiness. Absolutely.
But Madam, there's another sector, the health sector, and it is obvious that the records of the NDC compared to the MPP, well, let me leave that. But this government has done exceedingly well in the health sector also. I don't know if you would allow the focus of the campaign to also be on those areas. What I've noticed is that your opponent are inviting you, engaging you in economic propaganda debate. I do not think that would gel well with the electorate. Are you going to allow sectors like the health, which I believe is a reflection of how strong the economy should be, to be a focus of the campaign?
Well, you do know that we are very focused. It is the reason why even when we present our manifestos, we have 4 thematic areas. Health features greatly in our manifestos, has always done and will always do. So when you look around at the interventions being made in health, I like very much the concept of the CHIPS compounds.
Indeed.
In most communities that in the past...
10% of your salary is going there.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's a matter that is very close to my heart.
Indeed.
And you know, nobody even complained at the time when that decision was made.
No.
And it's actually a great social
and it's still enforced.
Absolutely. And wait till you hear testimonies, especially from expectant mothers who have access to these CHIP compounds. Because you see, in these ones, you have nurses, you have traditional birth attendants who have been trained to manage them. So at any given time, irrespective of location, there is somebody who is there. In fact, in the central region, there are so many of them I've lost count. One of the key things to any successful nation is that you must improve patient-to-doctor ratios. You must improve upon your health facilities. When you drive across the length and breadth of Ghana, and President Mahama mentioned them largely yesterday, look at the expansion of the Ridge Hospital. I've heard some people say that, oh, it was just a rehabilitation.
Oh. You don't know what they are talking about.
It has been virtually reconstructed.
It is more than rehabilitation.
My younger sister is a doctor. She used to work there. I know what it was like. I drove through that place for many, many years. It occupies the whole space now.
Indeed.
A very modern facility, worthy of mention and worthy of example any day. Look at the police hospital. Kolebu itself has seen a total revamping of its equipment. Several others. We have the Maritime Hospital, which is due to be utilized soon after the commissioning, I believe in the next few weeks by October. That facility should be up and running. We have the Legon Teaching Hospital. We have the Tamale Teaching Hospital. The Upper West Hospital is coming up. Even in smaller districts, you go to the Salaga North constituency.
Not forgetting the one in the Ashanti region.
All over. In fact, the interventions in the Ashanti region are actually interventions we should be celebrating.
Indeed.
They are even getting a totally revamping of the garrison there. We are looking at developing the hospital. The new market is coming up beautifully. Pretty much going to be like the Kotokraba market in the central region. We're looking at the construction of that, the interchange in Kumasi. What is it called? The name even escapes me.
I don't.
I think it's the Sofa line.
The Sofa line interchange.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Great interventions. Go and look at the auditorium at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology.
Magnificent.
Magnificent. Great things are happening. So I agree with the Vice President that he will not be conceding the word change to anybody.
No.
Because we are transforming Ghana and we are changing lives.
Indeed. Madam, allow me to take some few text messages. This one says that President Mahama spoke really well at the hall. The NDC is surely going to win the next election. This is from Randy Chum Odru from Ekropong, Ekwiapim. This one says, Madam Joyce, almost all your policies are great for the ordinary Ghanaian. But what are you doing about we the qualified but unposted nurses around the country? You have just posted the teachers. What of us, the nurses? This is from Bawa, inside Yendi. Bawa, your concerns will be addressed shortly. And even if it is not, I will make sure I get the health minister to address some of these peculiar issues. This one says, JM deserves a second term and will give him that mandate. JM is the winner in the upcoming election. This is from Abdul Latif from Wali Wali. This one says, tell Madam that the communication director of the MPP have started lamenting that the manifesto highlights were stolen ideas from the MPP. This is from Joe Sunyani. Joe, I can assure you that manifesto, that is the MPP manifesto, that is yet to be launched, that is even if it is in the draft form, could not have been stolen. An idea which does not exist could not be considered to have been stolen. I'm confused. I mean, you can't lose what you don't have. This one says, good evening to you. In fact, I love the NDC Manifesto highlight. It was well understood, and now I agree that NDC is winning big time. This is from Frederick from Yendi. This one says, we thank God for fantastic and great highlight of our manifesto. A great man who is ready to transform Ghana and change the lives of Ghanaians. GM Tuasu. This is from Gabriel Brains. He did not inform us where he is texting from, but we shall forgive him. This is from Isaac from Huhoi NDC. He said NDC has promised and NDC has delivered. Loads of text messages. Let me take my time and see if I can Okay, this one is from Abdul Samad from Naleregu. Manifesto or no manifesto, this clearly will save JM from the race, and he is going to win. Thank you very much, Abdul Latif. This one says, I am much convinced that President Mahama will win the general elections. Hashtag I choose JM. Hashtag JM Twasu. This is Samuel from Kintampo South. I am excited that a text message is coming from around the country indicating a proper reflection of national coverage of yesterday's manifesto highlights. Grateful to you, madam, for coordinating such a successful program. This one says, Abdul, you don't have to call, you just have to simply send your message, and we shall read it to the rest of the world. This one is from Abdul Jamal Dean, the Northern Regional Coordinator for Action Youth for Mahama. He says, President Mahama is a man of wisdom who cares for the ordinary people by enhancing the health insurance scheme to a level that you can access it easily. My hometown road is under construction, Kumbungu to Nawuni Road, by this government. Action Youth for Mahama have a population of about 10,000 membership now in the north alone to vote for JM. He said JDM Zang, madam, you may have to help me with this.
JDM Zantugi.
Zantugi. Good. And then JDM Zantugi, JDM Twasu. Thank you very much, Abdul Jamal Dean from the northern region. Let me try. Wow, JM has killed it all. JM, in fact, you have just won my heart and my votes. JM Twasu. This is from Philip from inside Techiman. Just one more, then we go back to the studio. Some of the messages. Okay, keep the messages coming, and we'll make sure we read it to the hearing of everybody. Madam, let's look at the campaign proper. When you mount the campaign platform, things change. I'm sure those are some of the things that gets people like those people very excited to be making very wanton promises. But the issues proper, where should we be looking at? People can see the school buildings. They have seen copies of the Green Book. Earlier on, it was the argument of the opposition that nothing was being done. When evidence of this was captured in pictorial form, they say, oh yes, but it costs too much, only for their own members to debunk that assertion too. So now I'm wondering what the focus of the debate will be. The vice presidential candidate for the MPP, in one of his numerous lectures, had the occasion to accuse your government of having benefited from so much resources and yet did little. I don't know where you place this in your campaign message, but I really would love to hear your views on that.
Well, I'm sure you heard President Mahama yesterday. You heard him loud and clear. Let's not compare peaches and apples. These are opponents who even tried to contract a loan from a hairdressing salon in Hammersmith in London and yet sought to defend it. So you see, we all have these sort of things around us which are bound. This is a very, very serious administration. Our Euro bond, which we went to the market looking for $750 million US, was oversubscribed by $4 billion.
Amazing.
At 9.25%.
Interesting.
A very good rate. That speaks volumes. In any case, what is it we are doing with all the funds that we have? It is for us to invest in infrastructure. This infrastructure would change the structure of our economy. It would improve upon our job situation for our young people. It would also create the opportunities for investment that we all envisage. Next to that is that Ghana is actually on the verge of becoming a nascent oil industry. Our industry would never be as large as what we have in Nigeria.
No.
But we have taken very early steps. We have the Petroleum Act, we have the Petroleum Commission. We've even established a specific account, the ABFA, where petroleum funds are being paid in and utilized only for legacy projects. In fact, remember that this is a fund that you can only access through approval from Parliament.
Okay.
So there's a lot of transparency and accountability in that regard. So what is it our opponents are talking about? At a given time, when you look at the world economic outlook, the downturns the world over. Look at Brazil. Look at Greece. In fact, Greece was in a class of its own. People talk about all of these things. At the time, faced with these very difficult economic challenges, President Mahama stood tall and stood firm. We've gone through and emerged from a crippling power crisis, from a fluctuating cedi.
I'm happy.
Our opponents want us to go and renominate the cedi and drop the zeros, and then, of course, take all the HIPIC benefits and construct just what? Tiny little toilets that nobody even uses. Absolutely. So, you know, I don't like to go down to this level. I would rather stick to the issues.
It's understandable.
And keep the arguments and the debates on very, very good high grounds, touching on solely on what our candidate, our flag bearer, President John Dramani Mahama, wants for the good people of Ghana. And I think President Mahama brings a certain positivity. Look how united our party stands as we go into this election. Look at the sort of camaraderie that exists between our political leadership, be it in the campaign office, be it with the executives in the party, all across the country. In fact, President Mahama is one person that you can just pick up a phone and call even a communications officer in any of the regions, advise him on a thing or two, pick his thoughts on one thing or the other. I've seen a lot of this on the campaign trail, where he consults just about everybody.
Is that down to that?
Absolutely. A very humble individual, a very, very respected man, a man who has even published his own book and sold widely.
And he's paid taxes on them,
and paid taxes on the income, like everybody else will. What else can we ask for?
And, Madam, in wrapping up, I want you to tie in the concept of accountability and transparency with the values that Ghanaians as electorate tend to attach to their candidates. Because in my opinion, I'm sure it's an opinion that you would agree with, that they go to candidates or they tend to elect candidates that they think they have some bit of trust in them. How effective is that in this year's campaign? Is that something they are still holding dear to, or the dynamics have changed?
I think pretty much Ghanaians are the sort of individuals who like to be associated with certain types of people. For example, when you take most of our leaders that we've had in the past, they've been very gracious individuals, very charismatic, right from Osagyefo's time. Look at former President Rawlings. There are still people who believe that he's still going to be on the ballot paper and speak about his times with a lot of nostalgia. We come to our own former late President Mills, may his soul rest in peace. Great guy, a man who had taught many, many people in this country and was held in some sort of stead, trustworthy, God-fearing, religious. In fact, everybody named him Asunjehini. President Mahama has recently been named Ahombra Sehini, the first.
Indeed.
Because of the level of his humility. I am privileged enough to have known President Mahama all of my life. And he's one individual that I would say has simply not changed. And you can ask anybody. I say this with no fear of contravention. Very affable, very respectable, an everyday kind of person. It is a reason why people have come to trust him. In fact, President Mahama is one individual who is liked across board.
Even by MPP activists.
Even by our opponents.
I know that on authority.
Even by our opponents.
Madam, it's sad that we run out of time. But Madam, I know you make time to join us again, before 7th December. Even though it's very difficult to get you in this year, we are so exceedingly grateful to Honorable Joyce Bawa for coming. I told you if she were to be a judge, she would be a Supreme Court judge. Yes, Supreme Court judge. Thank you very much, the official campaign spokesperson for the NDC. We could not exhaust all the topics that we wanted to discuss tonight, but the campaign has shifted to Accra, right?
Certainly, we're in Accra this week, right up to Friday.
Okay.
And thereafter, we'll all be heading to Brown Hartford, to Sunyani, where we'll be launching the Manifesto for 2016. So we welcome you to participate.
Thank you
very much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming. So then